California's zero carbon plans. Is there anyone in that doggone state who can do basic math, basic arithmetic? Anyone? All right, so go on a journey with me real quick, will you? We're going to take my laptop here, and we're going to plug in, we're going to turn on this Porter cable shop light here. If I can turn it on. Hold on a second. There we go. All right, so we plug that in. All right. Actually, I'll tell you what, let's turn it off. We're going to do a quick experiment. We're going to turn this off real quick. There we go. I'm going to show you something. So I got my Porter cable shop light plugged into the wall. All right. And what you can see here, this is plugged into a kilowatt. All right. So let's go and we're going to say right now it's running 123 volts. All right. So base is 120 volts is what runs an American utility outlet, American electrical outlet on your wall. And I think across Europe is 240. But anyway, what does that say? That says how many amps. Well, there's no amps because there's no load, i.e. nothing is turned on to run that Porter cable lamp right now. Then we go to watts right here, and there's no watts, right? You see that? No watts being run. And then we come over here, and there's no watt hours. Hope that makes sense. So again, right now, the voltage, it's a hot outlet. It's got volts in there, 120. Basically, again, 120 is what we're running, 123. But it's got no amps. So volts times amps equals watts. And again, there's no watts because there's no, it's not turned on. So let's go turn our, all right, sweet. So we go back to volts, and we're going to see, all right, hold on a second, I got to find that right there. All right, volts, 100 and, oops. Can you see that? 100 and right there. So you can see the same number of volts, right? Yeah, 123. What's our amps? 0.23. So we can quickly find out. We can quickly times volts by amps to get how many watts. All right, and then we just look at the watts right here. It's going to be about 24, I think, is what it says, right? Yeah, 24. All right. So it's running, is consuming 24 watts is the load right now. All right. And then we look at watt hours. And we got no watt hours on there because I just turned it on, if that makes sense. So watt hours are how many watts it will use in an hour. All right, so we can turn this guy off because it's bright in here. All right, so, and that's a pretty efficient light, by the way, because it's bright, it only consumes 24 watts. It's only got, a quarter of an amp. It's fantastic. Love those things. I got that Harbor Freight, I think. Anyway. So what we do is we take our trusty calculator. We say, okay, Josh, so base is very efficient, but it still has a load. If you let that sit on all day long, how much electricity would it consume? 24 is our number of watts it's consuming while on times 24 hours. It would consume 576, essentially, watt hours, or basically a little bit more than a half of a kilowatt hour over the course of a day. All right. Remember that. We're using the time as well as the load is a kilowatt hour. In this case, we're not even getting a full kilowatt hour of leaving that thing on 24 hours. It would consume just over half a kilowatt hour. Okay, that's the value of LED lights. They're very efficient, and they don't emit a lot of heat, unlike an incandescent light. Actually, incandescent lights are great for your greenhouse because all the heat they emit. Yeah. All right, so let's read this because this is just freaking nuts, man. We are dealing with, we're just dealing with people who, it's crazy to me. These people are going to determine your future, and I just can't take it. All right, so let's see if I can't make this bigger. There we go. There we go. All right, so in California, we all know the inhabitants and their elected officials are far more sophisticated and virtuous than the rest of us who inhabit the other parts of the country. This particularly goes for the arena of climate change, where California is leading the way to saving the planet by rapidly eliminating all the carbon emissions coming from its electricity sector. Notice again, always electricity, never total energy, because even California knows they can't eliminate CO2 emissions from the energy sector. All right, California's CO2 emissions are about 1% of the world annual, and its electricity sector accounts for about 15% of those emissions. So again, the energy, the whole amount of CO2, the vast majority is on the energy side, not the electricity side. Hold on a sec. All right, so if we eliminate all the electricity CO2 emissions, we're talking about 0.15% of all the world's emissions. An amount whose elimination, as you can easily see, will rapidly transform the world's climate. In 2018, California enacted a law known as SB 100, Senate Bill 100, which mandates a 100% carbon emissions-free electricity sector by 2045. But how do we get there? The question was finally answered in March of this year when the California state agency responsible for achieving the goal issued a joint agency report and accompanying summary document setting forth their plans. And the plan can be found right here. All right. The plan shows California regulators have absolutely no idea what they are doing. Perhaps I'm wrong. I invite all readers to check me if I'm missing something, but I don't think so. Either these people do not understand the basic units used for these calculations, or they cannot do basic math, or both. All right, the answer given in the plans to how much to get a zero emissions electricity sector is to build lots and lots of solar and wind facilities. Obviously, those don't work all the time. So to start with, you need to build far more capacity than your peak usage. California's peak usage is currently 40 gigawatts. All right, 40 gigawatts. All right, so remember, that means at any instant they're using at peak 40 gigawatts. When I just plugged in my Porter cable, we were using 24 watts. Does that make sense? In that one instance, we were using 24 watts. Now we're not using anything. We were using 24 watts. Now we're not using anything in that one instance. So California's peak demand on the load for electricity is 40 gigawatts at once, literally a second in time. This will make sense. And that is projected to increase substantially as more of the economy gets electrified with more mandated electric vehicles. So the plans call for an addition of some 97.6 gigawatts of solar capacity and 22.6 gigawatts of wind by 2045, on top of the 26.5 gigawatts of those two currently existing. It's weird, actually. I say, if their peak demand is 40 gigawatts and they're already having 26 as the current capacity, how come there's still the whole thing with nameplate capacity versus actual production? The whole thing is just such a fraud. All right, we'll keep going. Let's see. They also plan for a little bit of geothermal, but it's a rounding error. All right. With the additions, California would total some 146.7 gigawatts of wind and solar capacity, which may be around triple peak usage after you account for incremental electrification of the economy. But then solar and wind power are in a minute, meaning that you don't necessarily deliver the power when you need it. What are we going to do about providing power on calm nights when solar and wind deliver nothing? Well, the California regulators have figured this out. Storage, they tell us, storage. And how much storage will we need? They give a very specific figure, 52.8 gigawatts. Perhaps that may seem to make sense at first blush. If peak usage is around 50 gigawatts by 2045, then 52.8 gigawatts of storage may just be enough, with a very small margin to deliver power at a sufficient rate to satisfy demand when the solar and wind are completely dead. It's hang in there. You gotta stay through the video. And how much will this cost? When we'll be replacing all the current fossil fuel generation with wind and solar facilities, plus adding enough storage to make it all work, right? Well, here's the calculation. All right, modeling results that achieve 100% clean electricity will increase the total annual electricity system cost by nearly $4 billion by 2045. All right, so that's 6% more than the current costs under the state's renewables portfolio standard requirement of having at least 60% by 2030. So it's only going to be 6% more. It's only $4.6 billion. Basically, it's chump change. Why not do it? After all, we could have modeled it. The model proves it. Are we missing something there? Yeah. Here's a piece I think is a little bit more significant. All discussion of plans is expressed in units of gigawatts. Now, gigawatt of capacity can certainly be relevant in this context because assuring that power can be delivered from those massive batteries quickly enough to satisfy peak demand is definitely an important engineering challenge. But a whole nother subject is gigawatt hours, GWH. In other words, is the total amount of energy stored by the system sufficient to carry you through not just an instant, but through the longest period demand will exceed supply routinely. Remember, they're saying they're going to have 52 gigawatts of storage in batteries. All right. Peak demand is 50. Literally, for that 1 second, we used all your storage. That means literally that simple. You have 52 gigawatts of storage. The peak demand with all electricity, vehicles, and all that is 50 gigawatts. We are now done with your battery storage. We had enough to power the whole state for 1 second. That's it. Because I just showed you that kilowatt. When you're running a kilowatt, it's showing you what your watts being used right now are. Right now, that's it. So your watts being used, in this case, is 24 watts right now. How many watt hours is it using, do I need to have to provide the load to keep this thing on? Notice this thing is turned off right now. There is no load here. There's no watts being consumed, no amps. When I turn this thing on, if I can find it right there, right now we have a 24 watts and 0.23 of an amp. Turn it off, not, we don't. So if I had a battery that could provide me 24 watts, it would provide me of storage, it'd provide me 24 watts for that one moment in time, and then it's done. So it's freaking idiots. Now I'm just Josh in my t-shirt and my dogs. Nothing fancy, got a degree in economics, wow, and I do financial planning. But even I know this. These are the bestest and brightest minds in California. Look, I talk to a lot of pro renewables. A lot of these guys just don't know their butt from a hole in the ground. I'm sorry, they just don't. They love the fairy tale. They love the idea of Tesla. They love the idea of batteries. They have no idea what they're talking about. All right, but another subject is gigawatt hours. In other words, the total amount of energy stored by the system sufficient to carry you through. How about if there are entire seasons like winters when days are short, cloudiness is high, and the wind is extended period of calm, and batteries could be getting drawn down for weeks or even months on end? How much will you need in the way of gigawatt hours of storage capacity to support this entirely wind and solar system, again, just for electricity? There's nothing in the subject in these plans. It's all gigawatts. They don't talk about gigawatt hours. Back in 2018, a guy named Rondra Andrews made just such a calculation, and there's what he said. He said, basically, we're going to need 24, right here. Here's our storage. So he's saying we're going to, let me just show you here. Here's gigawatt hours of battery storage needed. All right, so basically what we need here is we're going to need 25,000 gigawatt hours to provide us with the amount of juice we need on any given minute. So what's happening here is in the summertime, we've got lots of surplus, which is going into the battery to build up the battery bank. In the wintertime, though, we have lots of deficits, which is being drawing down that. So you can see 25,000 gigawatt hours is what we need. California is only budgeting for 52 gigawatts. That's it, gigawatts, not gigawatt hours, because they don't know freaking basic math. So we got megawatts is the load, all right? So you can see here is the load that we have. We have a deficit of, from January, February to March of, I can't see what that is, 18,000 megawatts on any given moment. All right, then we have surpluses. We have more coming into the grid than going out because of the sun and the wind. Then we got deficits again of megawatts. And what does that mean to have the storage balance counter that deficits is that we need 25,000 gigawatt hours of battery power storage to provide these deficits. It's crazy. All right, so let's go. The bottom line is it take about 25,000 gigawatt hours of stored energy to get through the full year. The batteries would get to around that level in August, right here, when we have massive amounts of surpluses. So we're storing juice, and then when come the winter, fall and winter, they go down. And then they get drawn down all the way through March, and then we do it again. And of course, that's at peak usage of only 40 gigawatts, my friends. Ramp it up to about 50 gigawatts, and you'll need more like 32,000 gigawatt hours of storage. So how much would that cost? In November, the answer for California was about in November 2008, I posted that California is about $5 trillion. Let's see if we can get it to a more up-to-date figure. According to this post by Electric on April 1st, 2021, Apple, in an effort to demonstrate its extreme corporate climate virtue, plans to construct a gigantic battery project to enable its corporate headquarters to run on just solar power. From their own press release, watch the difference what Apple says here. Apple is constructing one of the largest battery projects in the country, California Flats, an industry-leading grid-scale energy storage capable of storing 240 megawatt hours. They talk about megawatt hours of energy. enough to power 7,000 homes for a day. All right, so again, 7,000 homes for a day are being powered by 240 megawatt hours. Does that make sense? Yeah, not that big of a deal when California's got like 50 million people or something like that. So again, Apple is constructing one of the largest battery projects in the country, enough to store 240 megawatt hours of energy, which is enough to power 7,000 homes for one day. That's real engineers saying that. It's like, look, this isn't a panacea, man. The project supports the company's 130 megawatt solar farm that provides all of its renewable energy in California by storing excess energy generated during the day and deploying it when it's most needed. Okay, but again, 240 megawatt hours of energy stored gives you 7,000 homes powered for a day. California needs 32,000 gigawatts of energy storage. Again, we're just talking electricity to go to the grid, electrical grid. That's it. All right. I hope you see where I'm going. Now, here's how much it costs. The batteries are being supplied by Tesla based on pricing from Tesla, indicating cost of such batteries in the range of $200 to $300 per kilowatt hour. Electric calculates Apple costs with 240 megawatt hour of battery capacity is $50 million. All right, $50 million divided by 240 megawatts. Megawatt hours, you're going to get $200 to $300 per kilowatt hour. So what would that cost for the 32,000 gigawatt hours worth of these batteries? If it helps, there are more than 1 million kilowatt hours in 1 gigawatt hour. All right. So if you have three, we'll just say $250 per every kilowatt hour stored. There is 1 million kilowatts in 1 gigawatt. And we don't just need 1 gigawatt. We need 32,000 gigawatt hours of battery storage. 6.7 trillion is what it costs, which is more than double the annual GDP for California. In fact, the United States GDP is only $20 trillion. 6.7 trillion. Remember that the plans of California's Joint Agency Task Force said the incremental cost of the all-wind solar will run about $4.6 billion. They're lying. Meanwhile, California marches on with big additions to its grid battery capacity, supposedly to balance the grid in light of additions from solar and wind power. But are the additions meaningful enough to the task? No, they're not. And so we're going to talk about this. Here's a post from Renew Economy. A recent report by Bloomberg citing new Bloomberg NEF numbers reveal that the leading power analysts expect California to not only install 1.7 gigawatts worth of new battery storage, but another 1.4 gigawatts in 2022, followed by 1.2 gigawatts in 2023. Always gigawatts, never gigawatt hours. Trying to get any useful information out of these people is almost impossible. I think they are all completely innumerate. Out of 40 million people in California, isn't there one single person who can ask a relevant question? And so I commented, because this is nuts. Let's see my comments on here. Hold on, let me pause it real quick. I comment because the idiocy of gigawatts versus gigawatt hours is mind-boggling. But here, wondering the actual size in square, this is why I said, wondering the actual size in square meter these farms are going to be. If wind generates, say, 4 watts per square meter in photovoltaic in California, about, say, 70 watts per square meter over a 24-hour day, what is the land mass needed? Anyone care to do the calculation? So, all right, let's see. I don't think anyone answered. All right, so let's, all right, so no one answered that yet. So anyway, let's go to this article by Bloomberg. So we're freaking, I just can't. It's nuts. And these people are running the show, man. All right, so let's hold on. Let me just pause it right here. So, all right, well, hang tight. We're going to click on this guy. All right, so here's, they're just literally cutting and pasting from Bloomberg. California to install 1.7 gigawatts of battery storage to boost grid supply. In an effort to stave off a repeat of the 2020s blackouts. Okay, so they're going to install this. All right, so what I said in this one, I said, let's take a look, because they got all these people. Peak demand is 40 gigawatts. So tell me, please, how is 1.7 going to accomplish anything? It won't, of course, because this article misses the key number. But don't stop believing in fairy tales. And so now we go over to the Bloomberg article from which this is derived, published by Bloomberg Green. The green people are just freaking nuts, man. The state to become a global test case in using batteries to back up wind and solar power. All right, so remember, screenshot this, my friends, because we're going to need to look at this a few years from now. Oh, I can't read this now. When it fails, it's not going to work, man. So this is Bloomberg. David Baker. Let's see what's this guy's background here, because the fact that he doesn't say his stuff. All right, so California has become a test case for batteries, and it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. Let's see. With summer heat's approaching, California's plan for avoiding a repeat of last summer's blackout hinges on the humble savior, the battery. Giant versions of the same technology that powers smartphones and cars are being plugged into the state's electrical grid at breakneck speed. All right, so anyway, just keep going. Where does they say here? Joe Biden's ambitious plan to receive a carbon-free electricity system by 2035, which will require massive battery deployment and the expansion of renewable energy systems across the nation. It's just the whole thing's freaking stupid, man. This whole thing is nuts. By August, the state will have 1,700 megawatts of new battery capacity. Enough to power 1.3 million homes, and in theory, to avert a grid emergency on the scale of last year's 1,700 megawatts. Really? Because remember, peak demand is 40, 50 gigawatts, if that makes sense. So what is there? 1.7 megawatts, 1.7 thousand megawatts is 1.7 gigawatts. Peak demand is 40 and going on 50 gigawatts. Hope that makes sense. All right. And again, China's on track to increase capacity to 222 gigawatts by the middle of the century, from 1.4 gigawatts. Oh, anyway, I want to keep going down. If batteries last 4 hours, that's not really going to do the job. It's still somewhat improving using batteries for a large portion of capacity. Yeah, exactly. Most of the battery packs now available are designed to run for just 4 hours at a stretch. Well, that makes them a good fit for California, where their electricity supplies can be strained in early summer evenings. Batteries would not have prevented the multi-day outage that paralyzed Texas. It's not a good fit for California. Let's see. So, okay, right here. Right here. The U.S. is poised to install more energy storage than any other country. Well, more battery projects are coming online, and the price of lithium-ion cells drops because lithium is unlimited. It just pulls from the sky. It's just the magic electricity fairy. The rollout has not always been smooth. We had fires, deployment issues. We got slave labor from the Chinese and Nigeria and other sub-Saharan African places for sure. All right, just in case, right here, this will crack me up. Just in case, the state has also delayed the planned closure of some gas plants and beefed up demand response programs that cut power when needed to some customers in exchange for a lower rate. Just in case, they delayed the planned closure of gas plants. Yeah. It'd be an ugly situation to run into something like we had last summer. That's a strong indicator it's unlikely to happen this year. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's funny. Just in case the state has delayed the planned closure. All right, my friends, the point being is this whole thing is fairy tales. You got to get out of these places that are fairy tales. Like, I know many say, we got to stay and fight. We got to stay and fight. You got to leave. You're losing. You're going to lose to these people because they're not operating. They're not sane. These people are nuts. That's all there is to it. And when you're dealing with nuts, you can fight them with logic. It won't matter. You just got to vacate. Come to Georgia, Texas, Idaho. Bring your red voting record with you. Other than that, stay in California, and you're going to pay the price. Because 10 years from now, this experiment is going to fail remarkably, just like the high-speed train in California failed remarkably. Look, dude, this is just basic common sense. But they'll be another excuse why they never called for instance, global cooling in 1970s, when they surely did. They surely did, and they say that was all in jest. They'll say the same thing now. Get out of California. All right, we'll see you.